President plans to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Mr. Trump spoke on Tuesday with the Palestinian and Egyptian presidents and the kings of Saudi Arabia and Jordan. All said they were opposed to this move, warning it would undermine regional stability. Recognizing Jerusalem as the capital will also see the U.S. Embassy relocate from Tel Aviv. It's not known when that would actually take place. Joining us out here in Los Angeles is Dalia Dasakay, a Middle East expert with the RAND Corporation, and in San Francisco, Arash Ari Aramesh, a national security and foreign policy analyst. Good to have you both with us. You know, there was one moment which really struck out during the White House briefing on Tuesday with Sarah Sanders. Listen to this.
Is it safe to say, other than Israel, which thinks that this move is 22 years overdue, that all of the feedback that he's been getting from world leaders is overwhelmingly negative about this idea?
No, again, he spoke with 5 leaders. That's hardly indicative of everybody across the globe, but certainly, you know, he's going to continue to have conversations with different leaders from across the world, and we'll keep you posted as those calls take place, and we'll let you know when the president's made a decision.
Dalia, would it be fairly safe to say that those 5 leaders are, in fact, very indicative of what many believe around the world?
I think so. The U.S. is fairly isolated on this issue. Even our closest allies in the Arab world are vehemently opposed to this move. There's a reason U.S. presidents in the past, Republican or Democratic, have not supported a move to recognize Jerusalem as the full capital of Israel. There is recognition that de facto West Jerusalem is the Israeli capital, but without recognizing East Jerusalem, there's a concern that that would undermine the peace process. So all of the regional neighbors are opposed to this, and I think most concerned would be Jordan, which is a critical U.S. ally on other issues in the region, counterterrorism and so forth. So I think it is fair to say we would be isolated regionally and globally on this issue.
Now, Jordan has a special interest in what happens to Jerusalem. Here's the front page of Wednesday's Daily Star in Lebanon. The headline, "No offense, Mr. President, Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine." That's pretty tame considering what's to come. The U.S. State Department issued a travel warning for Americans in Jerusalem. Widespread calls for demonstrations, it reads, beginning December 6th in Jerusalem and the West Bank. U.S. government employees, families restricted from personal travel in the Old City, the West Bank, should avoid crowds and areas with increased police military presence. Pretty standard stuff, but also American embassies around the world, they're beefing up security. Arash, given everything that's to come, where's the payoff here for the U.S. in terms of diplomatic goals?
Well, there's a big payoff for President Trump. This has been a key campaign promise of his, and knowing President Trump has not been able to keep a lot of his campaign promises, this is something, at least rhetorically, that he can deliver tomorrow. But in actuality, tomorrow, when the president makes that announcement and says the U.S. actually, in fact, accepts Jerusalem as the whole capital of Israel and announces the move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, that's not going to happen overnight. There has been this 1995 Jerusalem Embassy Act. This is the law of the land that the U.S. has recognized and has accepted Jerusalem as Israel's capital. But every president since, that's Clinton, then Bush, then Obama, for every 6 months, they come and sign a waiver. So they waive U.S.'s obligation to move the capital, to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, knowing there's going to be repercussions and knowing that if we do that, we're no longer going to be viewed as a neutral and objective mediator between the Israelis and the Palestinians. About 1/3 of Jerusalem's population, that's mostly in East Jerusalem, are Palestinian Arabs. So you're going to have security concerns there. But for sort of long-term prospects for peace, there have been 2 sticking points, 2 key issues for the Palestinians. One has been the issue of dividing Jerusalem and accepting East Jerusalem as the Palestinian capital of a potential Palestinian state. And the second issue, obviously, is the right of return for the refugees. So we're pretty alone in this. And again, President Trump is making this decision unilaterally without the support of any of our allies. And unfortunately, this is going to put our great friend and ally Israel at much greater risk. I feel like he's throwing a lifeline to Prime Minister Netanyahu now in Israel, who is embattled with a lot of his allies are embattled with corruption charges and corruption scandals. And he's throwing himself here in the U.S. another lifeline, taking attention away from waves of investigations, about the Russia investigation, and so on and so forth. And again, it doesn't look good for a president who's got a 35% popularity rating here, but he is going to appeal to his base, especially to Christian evangelicals who have been very adamant pro-Israel, and he's speaking to them. Again, not much in action, but in rhetoric, he's going to appeal to them, but weakening U.S.'s position globally.
Dalia, the Arab League secretary says this now raises questions over Washington's role as a peacemaker. Listen to this.
Any recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel by any party will be a breach of international law, customs, and historical logic. It will be an infringement to feelings of the Palestinian, Arab, and Islamic people, and also those who love peace in the world.
There is an argument out there, though, that this is actually a good move by the U.S. president. If nothing else, by keeping this campaign promise, it gives him credibility. It shows the world that he keeps his word. Is there any merit to that argument?
No, I don't think so. I think global leaders, regional leaders fully expect U.S. presidents to continue deferring this decision to the actual peace negotiation, should one resume, between Israel and Palestinians. This is not an issue that anyone supports the U.S. unilaterally imposing on the parties. So I think it actually does the reverse. It undermines his credibility. And I think, it really raises the question of why doing this, another self-inflicted crisis with very, few strategic gains, if any, at great risk and high cost, with potential instability. The issue of Jerusalem, you cannot underestimate how important this issue is emotionally to the national identity of both the Israelis and the Palestinian people, and to the broader Muslim world. This is playing with fire. I think it's an incredibly destabilizing move that will undermine U.S. interest in the region.
Arash, just very quickly, if you think back to 2000, to Camp David, to the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, and the Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, they tried everything to try and solve this issue over Jerusalem. They decided that there wasn't enough of the city to go around, so they would expand the city. Simply talk of dividing Jerusalem sent thousands of Israelis onto the streets. Is it now an argument which I think is being put forward, is it a valid argument, I should say, being put forward by the administration? For 22 years, they've tried everything. This is now reality. It's now time to do something out of the box and see what happens.
No, I simply think the Trump administration is not serious about a Middle East peace deal. And I think Dalia is right. This is going to jeopardize stability. I'm not just worried about what's going to happen in Jerusalem, but I'm worried about what's going to happen around the globe. Other U.S. embassies can be bigger targets now. Look at, there could be demonstrations, there could be violent demonstrations around the world, from Indonesia to Pakistan, from Morocco all the way down to Mauritania. So this could jeopardize American security and also U.S. embassy security around the world. But also, let's not forget, one of the reasons, in addition to Yasser Arafat not being a very honest broker for the Palestinians, but one of the reasons that the 2000 peace deals sort of fell apart was Ariel Sharon visiting Temple Mount at the time. He went to Jerusalem, he visited Temple Mount, and then you had the Second Intifada that sort of sank not only the peace deal and the peace process, but also Ehud Barak's prime ministership and the premiership. And then you had Sharon becoming prime minister. So you have a whole host of issues. But again, the biggest problem here, the biggest issues in the region are sort of this proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And if the U.S. is siding with the Saudis against Iranian expansionism, alienating the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, the Emiratis, the Turks, you go on and on and on, and the Jordanians is not going to help us contain what Iran has gained now in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, in Lebanon, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we're out of time, but it does make you wonder if Kushner did some kind of deal in Riyadh over the last couple of weeks with the Saudis, that they can have their way in Yemen, and the Israelis will get this announcement of Jerusalem. But I guess we will never know. Dalia and Arash, thank you for being with us. Most appreciated.
Thank you.
Well, Russia won't be competing in next year's Winter Olympics. It's an unprecedented decision by the International Olympic Committee as